what I'm going to talk about today, there's the 10 tips that I'm going to give you to help you attain a low maintenance landscape around your property. First one, pay attention to the mature size of the plants. You can see by these photos that when this was planted originally, planted it too close to the house and didn't pay attention to the size of the plants, that what was going to be the ultimate size of the plants. And some of these plants were planted right next to the house. Please don't do that, because it doesn't work. And this here, you can see, this is a dwarf Alberta spruce. The word dwarf means that it grows very, very slow. It doesn't mean that it doesn't get big.
That was my mistake.
Yeah, and Connecticut College in the Carolyn Black Garden, going down towards the base of the garden, there's some dwarf Alberta spruce in there that are about 18 feet tall. They've been there since 1920, but they're still dwarf Alberta spruces, but it just took them that long to get that tall. So I don't care if it's this big when you put it in, read the tag. But then there's a caveat with the tag. The tags lie. I've learned that over the years, that they don't tell the truth on the tags. So what I try to do just with experience, if a tag tells me something gets 3 to 4 feet tall by 4 to 5 feet wide, I look at it that it gets 4 to 5 feet tall by 5 to 6 feet wide. I add some more height and width onto it. And sometimes even more. When I go back to old landscapes that I've installed, I look at some of these places. It wasn't supposed to get that big, but that's what the tag said. So just, if you really fall in love with a plant, check the tag and then maybe do some more research, and you'll come up with different size ranges from different places wherever you look, and just kind of take the average. And then still add some onto it, so you can add, so you know you're going to plant it in the proper place in the garden. Okay, proper pruning for shrubs and trees. What I'm showing here is not proper pruning. It drives me crazy when I see shrubs that are pruned into meatballs and to squares, because that's not how they grow. That's not what they're supposed to look like. These had to be pruned because there's a sidewalk right here, and it looks like it's a U. It's definitely a U wants to get 12 to 15 feet wide. So in order to keep it in that 3-foot space, it needs to be pruned constantly. And the same with the azaleas and with the rhododendrons. Going back to point number 1, make sure to check the tags, and if it says 4 to 5 feet wide, add 5 to 6. Make sure your bed is about 7 to 8 feet wide. Because also when planting, plant it so what the mature width says on the tag, there's still going to be a foot of space between the house and the mature plant, so the house can breathe. Do not plant plants right up against the foundation, because they'll grow right up the foundation, or they'll end up growing like this, and trying to get away from the foundation and get sun. So please pay attention, and try to pay attention to, if you are a pruner, pay attention to the natural shape of the shrub, and really try not to prune like this, because it slowly kills the plant over time. And if you don't know how to prune, hire somebody like us to come out and prune for you, because there's plants that get pruned at the end of spring, there's plants that get pruned in the summer, there's plants that get pruned in the fall. All the plants have different pruning schedules, so all the plants do not get pruned the same way.
What about cutting out the dead stuff inside of like your azalea or other plants?
Right, when you're going to prune, that's the first thing you do, is take out the dead. You look at the plant and go through and take all the dead out. And this is with anything. This is whether it's a rose bush, a hydrangea, an azalea, a rhododendron. The dead comes out first. The second thing is any crossing branches. So choose the strongest of the crossing branches, and then that's the next thing. And then after that, just kind of look around and walk around the whole shrub and just kind of get an overall shape of the shrub. And the shrub will tell you, like azaleas grow this way. They eventually come up this way, but then they go out and grow horizontally. Leucothoe, it's an evergreen, it grows like a fountain. Forsythia grows like a fountain. Pay attention to that and prune accordingly. So say with a forsythia, with it growing like a fountain, again, the crossing branches on that is going to be critical, because if that doesn't get done, it kind of grows up into a gnarly mess. But if it's pruned without the crossing branches, you've got a nice fountain look of a plant, and it looks natural. So the whole thing is to prune the plants to look natural, not round or square. Number 3 and number 4 are going to be putting the right plant in the right place. Talked about this being dry and sunny. Don't want to put a hosta in that environment, because that's going to create maintenance to have to keep watering that plant all the time and coming in and pruning off the dead leaves. Choose a sunny plant to go into a sunny spot, and that'll save you a lot of maintenance. The next one is, again, putting a shade-loving plant into the shade. When you put a sun plant in the shade, you get something like this called phototropism, where I was telling you the plant grows, it's trying to find the light, and whether it be a tree or a perennial or a shrub, it'll grow towards the light. So that's telling me that this is planted in the wrong spot. Okay, do not use landscape cloth.
How do you get rid of it once it's on there?
You gotta rip it out.
Cut it out.
You gotta cut it out and rip it out. You gotta cut around the plants, you gotta get a nice, we use carpet knives that are very, very sharp, and they've got like a hook on it, and go right up to the edge of the plant and just cut it and rip it out.
I think they're actually called linoleum knives.
Oh, linoleum
The
knives.
old-fashioned linoleum
Yeah.
knives, but you can buy them.
Yep.
Yeah.
They're like 6
They're
or 8
great.
bucks a
We
piece.
use them for weeding between cracks in sidewalks, and also cutting and ripping
They're
out
called linoleum
landscape cloth.
cutters?
Linoleum, yep, you can find them at Home Depot or Lowe's. The problem with landscape cloth is that it does, if you have mulch on top of it, it doesn't allow the mulch to decompose. We go to properties that end up having anywhere between 6 and 12 inches of mulch on top of their beds, and it's the same thing every year. It does not decompose. So it keeps the mulch from decomposing. It keeps the water from getting to the roots of the plants, because those little holes that are in the landscape cloth get clogged up, and the plants they're starving for water. Also, the weeds that go through the landscape cloth on the top go right through those little holes in the landscape cloth. So when I go over to pick out a weed, I have to have a tug of war with it to get it out. Get rid of it. Don't use it. Don't use it. And they've got plastic stuff out there. They've got almost like a combination of plastic and paper. None of it. Don't use any of it. There's actually stuff that's really thick. It's almost like carpet that we've come across in some yards. And the poor trees, it's like when we take the cloth off, it's like, I can breathe now. So the only time we ever use landscape cloth is if we're putting in a stone walkway. Anything with stone, because then that keeps the weeds from coming up from below. But we very rarely use stone walkways, because that's a maintenance nightmare, because the weed seeds are flying around. They'll land in the stone, and it'll be a weeding nightmare. So we very, very, very rarely use stone.
You're talking crushed stone.
Crushed stone.
Right.
Crushed stone. Next one, number 6. Definitely mulch the beds. Mulch performs a couple of functions for the soil. It keeps it cool, keeps it moist, and it encourages, and it decomposes, and it encourages organic matter to form, and then the microbial activity in the soil to increase. You can use chopped up leaves, you can use wood mulch, but only a 2 to 3 inch layer, not this much, and no volcanoes around the base of trees, and then around the base of shrubs, all the plants, feather it away so there's natural soil around the base of each plant, and then it builds up to 2 or 3 inches around the root system, but keep it to 2 or 3 inches in depth, and then every year. The 3 inch seems to be the magic number as far as to be able to suppress the weeds. 1 inch per year decomposes, so the following year 1 inch will have to be added. And before it gets added, make sure to break up the top layer of the mulch because it tends to get hard on top.
The crust.
Yeah,
Right, crust.
yes.
Should we
And-
break it up with a fork?
Yeah, actually, I get, Home Depot has a tool, should bring it with us. It's a cultivator tool, it's a wheel, and it has all these
those things.
spokes
Yeah, I
on it,
use that.
and it works great to
Great.
break up the mulch.
Okay.
And then you do your fertilizing, and then you put your skim coat of 1 inch of mulch on top of that. Edging. I've learned that over the years that going bare edged is a lot more low maintenance than having plastic edging, rocks, bricks, whatever you use for edging. Take the edging out. So then when you mow, your mower goes right along the edge there, and a weed whacker does not have to be brought out to help you do your edging. When we do our edges, we do them naturally with a spade, flat spade, and we cut them once a year, and we really don't have to cut them but once a year, except if we've got a house that's got a lot of crabgrass, and crabgrass grows this way instead of lawn growing this way. The edges will have to be tidied up during the summer, but that one edge cut in the spring is enough to last for the whole season, and we cut it. If this was the garden bed, actually let's move it up here. If this is the garden bed, we cut it straight down here, and then there's an angle cut. Actually, when we cut it, it just naturally does that, but we come down straight and it cuts like an angle. So when we mulch it, the mulch fits right in there and comes right to the top of the surface here, so it's easy to take your mower and go around it. A lot easier than cutting around stones and whatever edge you have. Number 8, another important one, to cut back on the maintenance, choose disease-resistant plants. There's so many plants out there that are available, and every year they come out with new ones. This is a lilac, a phlox, and bee balm. All of these are susceptible to mold, mildew. They all have disease-resistant plants out there. So if you're in love with your purple monarda, there is a purple monarda out there or bee balm. There is a purple bee balm out there that does not get. You just have to read those tags again. That they don't lie about. They'll tell you that it's disease resistant or not.
Is that still a sun-loving plant?
Which the bee balm.
The purple bee balm.
The bee balm is shade to part sun.
Oh, really?
Mhm. Mhm.
What was the name of it?
Bee balm
I know. You just go by bee balm? There's no.
or monarda. And they come anywhere from this tall to this tall. So 4 feet tall. There's short ones and there's 4 footers and anywhere in between. There's all kinds. But it's a great bee and hummingbird plant. But it sows itself. It spreads itself, but it's not outrageous, but it'll throw itself around here and there, and so if you don't mind that, sometimes that's a good thing.
Where do you find all these plants?
I can get them for you.
Oh,
This will save you a lot of maintenance if you just take the plants off your property that they like to eat. And there's customers that I've run across, I can't live without my hostas. And I said, well, then I can't help you. I can't do anything for you. I've got to have my daylilies. I can't do anything for you because you're just sending up a beacon. Come here to eat. And there are a lot of really nice deer-resistant plants that are out there. There's no reason to hang on to hostas and daylilies and yews and tulips and all those things that they just munch right up. There's a lot of plants out there to choose from that they won't even touch. But if you do have those plants in your yard, you can plant herbs around them, and that helps to try to deter them because deer do not like anything that smells very strong. So lavender, rosemary, any of the herbs that have a very strong scent, intermingle them with your hostas or your daylilies or something, and that'll help.
What about lemon balm? Or mint?
Lemon balm, yeah, anything that's got a very strong scent.
Mint too?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, good.
But
Mint.
you wanna put mint in a, you wanna plant it in a pot. You wanna put it in a pot, you don't wanna plant it in your garden, cause you'll have mint all over the place.
Well, I have mint all over the place.
Oh.
I thought I would spread it all along the border of the two properties because the deer always come through.
Your right property line?
Yeah. I mean, they're always there. They're eating everything that they're not supposed to be eating.
Wow. Well, see, that's the other thing, they don't read the books. So, they're gonna eat what they're gonna eat when they're hungry enough to eat
They're
it.
really hungry
Yeah.
where we are. They're really.
At my house, they only eat plants that cost more than $9.99.
Connoisseur of good food.
Number 10, to make things easier on your property, remove, if you can, all the invasives off your property. And don't just cut it. You have to remove it by the roots, pull it out by the roots. If you've got a stem of bittersweet coming up and you cut it, the next time it comes up, it's gonna have 2 stems. And it just keeps, so you've gotta pull it out. And the worst ones we have in this area are Japanese knotweed, the bittersweet, and then it depends, barberry, multiflora rose, greenbrier, what else is out there? There's a whole bunch of stuff out there. Autumn olive, oh yeah, yeah.
Running bamboo.
Running bamboo, if you can, even if you just did it a little area at a time, it will help with the maintenance. Because here, this is all barberry. This should be blueberry in our woodlands. Blueberry or deciduous azaleas. So all these various invasives are pushing out our native plants and taking over the niches that these various plants grow in. So don't plant barberry, and I don't care if they tell you it is, what are they telling me now, that it's sterile? Don't plant it. They've got variegated Japanese knotweed that they sell in the garden stores. Don't plant it. Bittersweet, we do have some native bittersweet in the area, but it's far and few between. That is not invasive, it's the Japanese bittersweet that's invasive. So just
They sell bamboo also, don't plant it.
don't plant
buy it,
bamboo.
don't plant it.
And again, I don't care if it says in big black red letters that it's not invasive, don't plant it. Do not plant it.
Linda, I have a study in Japanese knotweed in my yard.
Ah,
It's all over the fence, and we've tried everything to get rid of it, and it's just like impossible. I've poured vinegar down the tubes, and it's huge. It's all around my fence, and the only redeeming quality is our neighbors have a pool, and it's like a barrier, so that's it. But it's horrendous, you know, I even when it gets the flowers, like it looks like a hydrangea.
it does,
And
it does.
it's just awful.
It
When
likes
it comes up all over the
disturbed
place.
areas. That's where it comes in, is where an area gets disturbed. So on your property, try not to overly disturb your property, because between the birds, between the wind, the seeds come in, and that's how it gets started. Kristen and I just attended a conference at Connecticut College last week, and they were talking about the knotweed. Right now, they said the best way is to cut it, and when it starts to emerge, it was one stem and now there's 2 or 3 stems coming up, but there's lots of leaves, and that's the time to spray it, or to cut it again. Not to spray it this way, but they have a wick sprayer that's like a rolling, a paint roller that's on a stick, and take it and paint it at that time. When it's just coming up and it's taking all the nutrients out and trying to make a plant.